Okay, everyone, we will be starting in a couple minutes. I'm just letting the meme taj roll. Yeah, let me just make sure. Yep, that looks good. All right, just letting this go for a second. I'm just gonna make sure I have my water, and we'll get started in a couple minutes. So this is the effort slash shit post of the year. So hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I'm just gonna say up front, I probably will not be looking at chat until the end. Just so because I sometimes if I'm looking at chat while I'm streaming, I just lose focus and I start talking about I start responding to that and I just am not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So it is what it is. I'm just having some water. Meme Taj is just rolling. So I always wonder if it's like actually random though, or if it's in the order of they appear in. Just because I feel like a lot of them just never show up whenever I'm doing one of these. So okay, I'm just gonna top up my water, and then we can get started. So start in like 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so guys, let me know if the audio is okay. Once I have it confirmed that the audio sounds good, then we can start. So, just if people could post in the chat and let me know. If there's like random background noise or anything like that, I'll try to deal with it. I got some WD-40 and I think I got the my chair was making like squeaky noises for a while, and I think some people thought it was be ripping one, but I got some. My chair should be fixed now. Okay, good. All right. Give me 1 sec, and then we'll start. Hello, all you beautiful people, and welcome to the first ever Argent Awards, aka the Argies. This is where we honor those who go above and beyond, those who blaze their own trail, who surpass that of the achievements of us mere mortals and go into the realm of the gods. These are the people who were the current thing from the previous year and whose memory we will always share or something like that. I don't know. Now, I was going to have a song for this part, but I got the Dead Space 2 remake and I got distracted and I didn't actually wind up writing the song. So it was going to be like the Tiny Dancer was going to be like something like, "Congratulations, you won an RG. Do do do. This dubious honor now is yours. Do do do." Something like that, but all right. So the Argent Awards are honoring just a lot of the stuff that happened in 2023. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while. Way back in the day when I was still in university, I started doing, this was long before YouTube, I started doing the Third World Awards, where I was going to give awards out like most inexcusably third world country, like greatest socialist tyrant, stuff like that. And I just was too lazy and never really finished it. But kind of inspired by that. And so we're going to start the award show. Now, the format is going to be I did a video where I went and explained why everyone got nominated. I'm not going to go through all the individual nominees again, or we will be here all night. What we will be doing is I will be reading off the award winners. Then we will be, sorry, the award nominees. Then I'll announce who wins. And then after that is finished, we will, I'll explain why I picked that particular one, and then we'll move on. And I won't be looking at the chat probably until the end of the video, but feel free to post who you think should win, how you feel about it, and complain, because as with everything, life isn't about whether you win or lose. It's about complaining on the internet. All right, then. So we begin the first annual Argent Awards. Now, I think next year I'm going to have to do what the Oscars do. They always have the montage of people who died in the previous year. I initially was only going to have it for one person, who this award show is dedicated to. But then someone said, well, there's this other guy who died. I'm like, okay. And then Coach died. It's like, next time I'll just do a montage or something. If I have the agency, I'll put together a montage. Now, first and foremost, I would like to present our first RG of the evening. Or not so much an RG, but I'd like to say that this year we lost a great man. A great man who brought us so much joy and happiness, who was one of the great trolls, who had the courage to film himself standing on top of the dead bodies of his soldiers, and to yell at Putin and to yell at Gerasimov and Shoigu, and to try to, I don't know, get more artillery rounds or something. and who went from being a caterer to a LARPer to a mercenary and then led a march for justice. I'm speaking, of course, about Prigozhin, our man, the former head of Wagner. Yevgeny, I can't pronounce his first name, Prigozhin. You are best in hell and in our hearts. Goodbye, Wagner's Rose. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, Best in Hell is the movie that Wagner put out. Yes, Wagner put out their own movie. I haven't watched it yet, but that's what it was called. It was called Best in Hell. They had some like lame motto, but I always felt like Wagner's motto should be Best in Hell. So this whole thing is in loving memory of Prigozhin, the man who was so many things to so many people. He ran a troll farm. He was Putin's friend. He ran a catering business. He sold substandard, dangerous, rotting rations to the Russian army. He was the leader maybe of a paramilitary group that was not really that was not really a mercenary group, and he ran it as kind of the figurehead, even though it was set up by Russian intelligence. But however we feel about him, he was the man. He was the man who led the march for justice, who tried to get justice for his soldiers in that mutiny coup, whatever the hell it was that no one even really knows. So this whole award show is in loving memory of Prigozhin, best in hell and in our hearts. Now, this was another one someone brought up. They said, Argent, Uncle Ted died. You got to put him in this video. And I'm like, yeah, but he hasn't done anything in years. He's just been in prison. They're like, but you have to have him. He was like, he's such an iconic figure. He's the kind of person who would have won an award if he had have been active this year. So I thought about it and I thought to myself, okay, Ted Kaczynski is going to get posthumous, Gamer of the Year for 1995. It was a pretty big gamer move to go to a cabin in the middle of nowhere and send parcel bombs to people, then writing your big manifesto, and releasing it and using your parcel bombs as a way to promote it. A special kudos for it actually being a coherent manifesto that is interesting and that is actually discussed by people. Unlike, say, Elliot Rodgers' manifesto or Breivik's manifesto, or any number of other manifestos put out by people who serial killers or terrorists. So we salute Uncle Ted. The Industrial Revolution and its consequences will forever be a disaster for the human race. Thank you, Uncle Ted. You are you taught us that we live in a society. You taught us this too sad. He could have probably, honestly, his genius and his like ability to write coherently and stuff. It's too bad. Maybe he could have formed like an eco-fascist movement or something. But we give a posthumous award to Ted Kaczynski for Gamer of the Year for 1995. Okay, I think I'm getting calmed down a bit. I was a bit nervous actually starting this, but I think I'm getting back into the swing of things. And we have one final goodbye to give out, and that is to Coach Red Pill, aka Gonzalo Lira. Now, the fact that this man died in prison in a country that is a client regime of his home country of America, and that the prison guards who tortured him and put him into a forced labor camp and forced him to work in the winter till his death, and then denied him medical care when he got double pneumonia. The fact that those guards were probably paid for by his government, because the entire Ukrainian army and civil service is paid by the American government, that would be enough to like at least get a nomination for the We Live in a Society award. it probably would have honestly won the We Live in a Society award. The whole thing is just so bizarre that this random dude who had a like Coach Red Pill who ran like a manosphere self improvement male whatever went to Ukraine and was covering like this war, and then the Ukrainian secret police like kidnapped him and put him in a labor camp, and now he's gone. And he actually was nominated for 2 awards tonight. So I thought about taking him out because I thought that it was maybe a bit tasteless. It was maybe a bit cruel, but I think we're going to leave him in this because people asked me to, and I was too lazy to find somebody else to take a spot. So God bless Gonzalo Lira. We wish you well wherever you may be. We'll never get to read Royal Shire Boulevard, but it will forever remain in our hearts. Okay, so before we get into the awards proper, there's just a dishonorable mention I'd like to give out, and that is to Armenia and Nagorno-Karabakh. See, these horrible people stole attention away from the suffering of the Israeli people. I remember I was like thinking about the Holocaust, I was thinking about the Ukrainian war, and I was thinking about Hamas. And then I saw up to 2 articles last year about how Nagorno Karabakh had been dissolved and 99% of its population had been displaced, and the area was completely ethnically cleansed by the Azerbaijanis. And these pieces of shit, these like, they dominated the media. Like those, like 700 Israelis died, and during the Hamas attack, but they tried to claim that like them getting completely ethnically cleansed from their ancestral homeland, their state collapsing, all of them being reduced to refugees and being sold out by their own leader. They tried to make the case that that was real suffering. Well, screw you, Armenia. We all know that the only minority who can be ethnically cleansed and driven out of their homeland is the Israelis. So, dishonorable mention to Armenia and to Nagorno Karabakh for taking it away from the Jewish people. And now we have the Lifetime Achievement Awards. We have 2 to give out. Now, these were given, I decided to do these because the 2 people in question deserve an RG for the year, but I hadn't done the rest of the awards yet, but I wanted to make sure they got something. So we have 2 people, one of whom is actually nominated by far for the most awards tonight. I'm sure you can guess who that is. And the other one is not nominated for anything, but he just deserves it. So, I present to you the first actual RG of the evening, the Lifetime Achievement Award for Justin Trudeau. Like, where do you even get started with Justin Trudeau? Like, the dude was a part-time substitute drama teacher who somehow became head of the Liberal Party of Canada, and then basically just became prime minister because of his last name. We had the thing where he like referred to himself in the third person. He's like, "The Canada but can Justin Trudeau build the Canada we collectively know we can be?" We have where he mansplained to the one like female questioner where he said, "Stop saying mankind, it's people kind." He talked about Gamergate. There was the time that he compared ISIS members returning to Canada to Greek and Italian immigrants. There was the blackface, the multiple blackface. There's the fact that there's a 20% chance that he's the son of Fidel Castro. There was the I think it was the Wii scandal. His wife left him. It's like, you can just keep going with Justo. If you kill your enemies, they win. Him taking his shirt off, the Bollywood dance. Like, there are so many L's in the life of Justin Trudeau. And he's just such a massive F-slur that I had to give him this award just in case he didn't win anything else. Um, because I mean, it's Justo. It's Justo, and he deserves it. Okay. We have a second lifetime achievement award to give out. People were asking why. Will ask why this person was not nominated for biggest snake. And if this was a couple years ago, then yeah, this person might have been nominated for biggest snake. But whereas a snake stabs you in the back, this is the kind of man who stabs you in the stomach. And there's only so many times that someone can stab you in the back till you learn to always be facing them when they're in the same room as you. And this man, it's let's just go on. Our second lifetime achievement award goes to Bergoglio himself, Pope Francis. Now, I couldn't really think of any actual award to nominate him for this year. I couldn't nominate him for biggest snake because he snaked so many times on everybody that it's just like it's not a surprise. Like Prigozhin rising up, getting like abandoning like Bakhmut and then trying to march on Moscow, that's a snakening. The US media going from saying that Ukraine's winning the war to Ukraine's losing, all is lost, we got to get out, that's a snakening. But it's like being surprised that a gazelle gets eaten by a tiger. It's not a surprise. It's whenever he does anything, it's to be expected. And there's a lot of stuff we could put Francis down for. Who am I to judge? Pope Humble the First, how he tried to cultivate this like image that he was this like saintly figure, and he carried his own briefcase or bag or whatever off the airplane, and he got rid of the Pope Mobile, and he banned the Latin Mass in large portions of the world, and he sold out all the Chinese bishops, and he revoked the church's teaching on the death penalty, and now he's kind of, sort of, maybe endorsed same sex relationships. We don't really know. But for being arguably the worst pope in history, because like there's been a lot of like popes who were degenerates in their personal lives. Most of them though were fairly good on like theological issues, and they didn't lead to like a complete like breakdown of discipline within the church, nobody knowing what is even going on. Like at a certain level, if he just had like a side chick, that would almost be better than where we have now. So Bergoglio, aka Pope Francis, is going to get an award for um, Lifetime Achievement Award. Okay, now for our first category, we have the King of Cringe Award. This goes to the cringiest thing or event in the previous year. And our nominees are Time Magazine's Top 100 Influencer list, which did not include Putin or Trump or Xi Jinping or MBS or pretty much anybody you've ever heard of. We have Dark Brandon / Bidenomics and how people unironically tried to turn that into a meme and thought it was cool. I think you also have that cringy like video of Biden sipping out of the Dark Brandon mug. We have Ukraine's spring offensive trailer. We have NATO's movie tweet, and we have Trump's NFT sale, which ruined. I think he released some really good policy stuff, and the next day he did an NFT sale, and it just kind of completely ruined it. And the award, the RG4 King of Cringe for 2023 goes to NATO's movie tweet. It was a tough one. This one was like a gnat's wing. I went back and forth a lot, but the fact that the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, the alliance that was formed, I think it was it 1947 or 1949, but was formed to fight the Soviet Union, to keep the world safe from democracy, to fight the deterministic war that would fight the fate of humanity, has been reduced to posting stuff like this on Twitter. It's rough, man. It's rough. I thought this was a joke for a long time. I thought that this was a troll. I thought somebody had like edited it, but no, NATO unironically published this. Let's just read this. Ukraine is hosting one of the great epics of the century of this century. We are Harry Potter and William Wallace, the Na'vi and Han Solo. We are escaping from Shawshank and blowing up the Death Star. We are fighting with the Harkonnens and challenging Thanos. So that is the Cringe Award. People can post in the chat or in the comments section what they think about that winning, but I don't know. It was close between the spring offensive and the movie tweet. The rest of these were just kind of thrown in. Okay. Next up, we have the Argie for worst take of 2023. And our nominees are Israel is a puppet of the United States from Brian Berletić. Hamas invaded Israel and did all that brutality on October 7th. October 7th is Putin's birthday. AKA Putin was behind the Hamas attack on Israel because Hamas attacked on his birthday and it was a birthday present to him. We have MaraLago is worth $18 million from that one judge who was saying that Trump committed fraud or something. Sorry, I just have to explain this one a bit more. So Trump, I think, had said that MaraLago was worth like $300 million or something. And he was like, this judge said that it was fraud and he had misrepresented his property, and that MaraLago, his like palatial estate in Palm Beach, Florida, on the side of the ocean, owned by a former president, was somehow worth $18 million. And I'm like, let's get like a couple guys together, take out some mortgages, and let's buy MaraLago. So that was one. We have Mark Milley. Russia is now a global pariah, and the world remains inspired by Ukrainian bravery and resilience. In short, Russia has lost. They've lost strategically, operationally, and tactically. That is from Mark Milley, the former chief of staff. That was, I think, back in what was it? February of last year, that he said that Russia is obviously not a global pariah, and obviously the war's not over. And then finally, last but not least, we have the first of many awards for this nominations for this evening. Justin Trudeau, Immigration is a Solution to the Housing Shortage. And the winner of the Argie for the 2023 Worst Take is Justin Trudeau for Immigration is a Solution to the Housing Shortage. There we go. Way to go, Justo. So this was what he said. He's like, so Canada has a massive housing shortage. Rent prices are insane here. There's just massive urban sprawl. They refuse to build infrastructure. Toronto's becoming one of the most expensive cities in the world. I looked it up. I think Toronto rent prices are actually higher than they are in like Tokyo. And there's no infrastructure to support it. So when Justo was asked about this, he's like, well, we need more immigration. If we bring in more immigrants, that will solve the housing shortage. Because they'll come in and they will build homes. And that'll resolve the housing problem. And that is the strategy that we need to take. The more immigration we have, the better the housing crisis will be. So that's number one. So Justo has his Lifetime Achievement Award, and he got this one. Okay. Like I said, this was a toughie. It was kind of this was really hard. Like, This was like one of the most schizo things I've ever read. The thing about Hamas invading Israel on Putin's birthday. MaraLago being $18 million was just retarded. Milley just, I don't know. Okay. So, next one. We have the Argie Award for 2023 for Best Take. And there was no bias whatsoever in these nominations and who actually won this award. The first nominee is Vivek Ramaswamy for bringing up the Great Replacement during the debate. The Great Replacement is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform, which led Tucker Carlson to talk about it on his Twitter show. We have some niche micro-influencer YouTuber with a G-slur Espion avatar named Argent, who came up with the concept of the Ukraine cinematic universe. And that's our second nominee. We have Elon Musk, just to explain this one a little bit. So on Twitter, they added a tag for certain media organizations saying that they're government run or government funded. Actually, that should say government funded. And CBC got marked as government funded media, and they got really angry about that because they're like, well, government funded or government owned media, that's like Russia Today or like the stuff you have in China or things like that. They're like, we're not entirely government funded. And Elon Musk is like, would you say you're less than 70% government funded? And they're like, yes. So he set the thing under the CBC's profile to say 69% government funded, and CBC threw a fit and temporarily deactivated their Twitter account. So no matter what happens with Elon, I have to give him credit. That was an amazing troll. Fourth, we have homosexualism, Satanism is a threat to society. If you're opposed, vote United Russia. That was the campaign slogan on the billboards of Vladimir Saldo, the now recently elected governor of Kherson. And I think that's something we can all get behind. And finally, the final nominee for Best Take is, this was from an Indian ambassador. He said, when Justin Trudeau came to India for the G20 this month, his plane was full of cocaine. He did not come out of his room for 2 days. Now, I couldn't find the rest of the quote, but basically he said Justin was just depressed and he sat in his room for 2 days doing coke and crying like a bitch. And I gotta say, whether it's true or not, it's just awesome. So it's a tough one. So in a completely non-biased way, the surprise of everybody, the Ukraine cinematic universe somehow won. It's completely non-biased. There was no fortification of elections. This voting was done with complete ethics in video game journalism. So the Ukraine cinematic universe is what I came up with last year, largely as a result of the King of Cringe NATO movie tweet. And it was just a reference to how the Western media's coverage of Ukraine basically was just like an action movie. It was like, oh, well, we're just going to, like, they're the little guy. We're just going to charge the Russians like in The Last Samurai, and they're just going to break and run away. It's like this narrative. You had like Mark Hamill doing like Luke Skywalker for bombing raids. It basically just like, you just had all this insane stuff happen, and everything was just framed as if it was a Marvel movie. And a lot of the war decisions were not really based on any sort of military logic. It was just to look cool for like the 6 o'clock news. It was like, okay, we're going to have this dramatic counteroffensive. We're going to launch bombs at like Moscow or Crimea or something. And like we still see this to this day that basically everything to do with this war is just choreographed and it's just there to make the 9 o'clock news and to just try to keep public interest on it as long as possible. And we just saw like they would come out with these narratives. Spring Offensive obviously was the big one. You had like the nuclear power plant one, um, and just all this wacky stuff. And when one would fail, they would just go to the next one. So I kind of just contrasted it with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's a whole bunch of videos I've done on that. And it's also like on a more serious level, it's based on the idea that this is like the people who run our society honestly think this way. They honestly think that this like cataclysmic war, that hundreds of thousands of people are dying, are going to be wounded, have their lives ruined, that's destroyed the economy in most of Europe, is some kind of movie. Like, literally, NATO made a post saying it was a movie. They released a fucking trailer, and stuff like that. And Zelensky was like a celebrity and stuff like that. And that is how these people view human life. And that is how deranged their view of reality is. So I'm going to have to give myself an award for that. Now then, we have a very highly esteemed award. I think a lot of people, this was one of the hardest ones. This might have been the hardest one of the year. We have the award for biggest snake. Now, this one is rough. First, we have Prigozhin and Wagner for their mutiny/march for justice. I mean, it's a pretty big snake if you turn on the guy who's employing you and try to do a coup or a mutiny or whatever that was. That was a pretty big snakening. We have Pashinyan, the Prime Minister of Armenia, for selling out Nagorno-Karabakh. He said that it's part of Azerbaijan. We have no claim to it. We aren't going to do anything to defend it. Then Azerbaijan almost immediately invaded. He did nothing, and the entire area got ethnically cleansed. We have Giorgia Meloni, the Prime Minister of Italy, for getting elected on a right-wing populist platform, and then immediately going back on all of her campaign promises and increasing immigration. Next, we have Justin Trudeau in his second of many nominations although he actually got mentioned in Best Take, now I think about it, for forcing Canada's Speaker of the House of Commons, Anthony Rota, to take the fall over the SS veteran in Parliament incident. It's very obvious that Justo was behind it. It was very obvious he knew about it, that he brought this dude in, and the whole thing was his fault. But because he's a bitch, he basically just told Anthony Rota, you're going to have to take the fall from this. You're going to have to resign because I'm Justin Trudeau. Finally, we have the Western media at large for throwing Zelensky and Ukraine under the bus. Just watch anything in the Snakening series, ranging from them portraying Zelensky as being this mentally unbalanced Hitler-like figure in the bunker, just basically playing with toy trains. The recent one, like about where they've started to talk about like the Nazi stuff, and just there's so many different things just in terms of the snakening. Now I'm just going to quickly check the chat and see what people are saying. I know I said I wasn't going to check the chat, but I'm curious. So this one was hard. I mean, Pashinyan is one of the biggest snakes in history. He completely sold out the Armenian people. He also, I did a video on him. There's all kinds of insane shit about Pashinyan. Like, it's pretty obvious he came to power in a color revolution and stuff like that, and he won re-election under suspicious circumstances. Everyone was hyped about Meloni, but ultimately, I had to give the award to the person who directly committed acts of violence against the person he snaked. And the winner of the biggest snake award for 2023 is Prigozhin and Wagner. Like I said, this one was really close, but Wagner actually attempted to march on the Capitol, and they actually killed people, like personally. Like they shot down a couple Russian aircraft. They actually directly killed people, and they attempted to militarily march on Moscow. So it is difficult, but I'm going to have to go with Prigozhin on this one. This one was close. So I'll see what people have to say afterwards, but it was either going to be Prigozhin or Pashinyan. But any of these people were massive, massive snakes. Okay. So our next award is the biggest collective L. Now, this one is another. This was another one that was really hard to pick a winner for. And this is the biggest collective L. We have a collective L, an individual L, a collective W, and an individual W, just because there was going to be too many, and it's funnier this way. So, our first nominee is Ukraine for the failure of the spring, summer, fall, winter offensive, Canada for applauding an SS veteran in Parliament, Russia for the Wagner mutiny / March of Justice, America for how it handled the Chinese spy balloon, wherein like Biden ordered them to shoot down the balloon, and the military is like, no, we don't want to shoot down the balloon, and then they just disobeyed Biden, and it was just this massive shit show basically over nothing. Armenia for the collapse of Nagorno-Karabakh, and America for its B Team Yemen coalition, which was like, I think it was America, Britain, Canada, was it Maldives? I think it was Maldives, UAE, Norway, Denmark, Holland. But when you actually looked at it, the UK was sending one ship that was undermanned and broke down all the time. And Canada, Holland, and Norway, I think collectively sent like 12 dudes. And they basically just sent some random dudes so that they could say that they were part of the coalition. And it was really lame. It was really fucking lame. So, biggest collective L. Just glancing at chat briefly, I'm glad that I tried to pick stuff from across the year and not to just do every Seychelles. Yes, it was the Seychelles. Thank you. It was not. It was not Maldives. I was trying to pick stuff like from all across the year, like not just stuff from the end of the year. So the award. This was a toughie. You could say any of these people deserve the biggest collective L. But I think ultimately the biggest collective L goes to Ukraine for the spring, summer, fall counteroffensive. Now, you probably can't even see it, but on this map it shows the gains during the counteroffensive in blue. Yeah, this thing was talked up for like 6 months. They made a trailer out of it. They like if you go back, and I did videos on this, they said that they were just going to attack the Russians. The Russians were just going to run away. They were going to march to Crimea, get there in like 48 hours. Russia was going to collapse. Putin was going to be overthrown. And Russia was going to be broken up into its constituent parts and stuff like that. That was like the claim. And they launched their attack. And depending on who you ask, they might not have even gotten through the first line of defense. I know some guys like infiltrated past the first line of defense, but if you remember like the first days of it, it was just them driving into minefields. You had trying to do the combined arms with no air support. That was somehow supposed to work. it was a bit late. It would have gotten worse take if it didn't come out on New Year's Day. But Zelensky said that the spring offensive failed because the plans were leaked by him, I guess. They were leaked when he announced them, like where and when he was attacking, like 4 months in advance, and like gave a list of which units were going to be involved and what equipment they were using. So I gotta have to give it to them. The second place is probably Armenia, but Armenia is just missing out on a bunch of awards for this one. Okay, let me just quickly look at the chat. Okay, next we have the biggest individual L. Firstly, we have, in yet another nomination, Justin Trudeau. He got divorced. There was that bizarre thing where that Sikh terrorist got assassinated, and then India cut off diplomatic relations with Canada, and it looked like it was going to be a catastrophic diplomatic meltdown. Then Hamas happened, and everybody just completely forgot about it. Once again, there was the SS veteran. It was a rough year for Justin. He is now, let me see what his approval rating is. I think his approval rating is like, let me see here. His approval rating is now like negative 30. Approximately 2/3 of Canadians disapprove of him, and 31% approve of him. So that's where Justo is at the moment. And in the upcoming election, it's looking like his party is going to get completely obliterated. So that's Justo. Now, I debated taking this one off the list, although in retrospect, it's a bigger L, but he didn't die during 2023, so it's a tricky one. Second one is Gonzalo Lira being arrested by Ukrainian intelligence. Now, it's a pretty big L. We got to go with that. I don't know what else to say. God bless Gonzalo, but posting like videos to YouTube and then getting arrested and then dying in a prison camp, while tragic, is a pretty big L. Next, we have Chank's presidential campaign, just how lame it is, how nobody cared about it, even though he's like really the only person running against Biden. I guess there's Marianne Wilkinson or whatever. RFK was the only other candidate anyone gave a shit about, is running as an independent. He had like the worst website I think I've ever seen. It was terrible. He can't even run because he's not a natural born U.S. citizen. So the whole thing was just complete disaster, and he was widely mocked for it. Next, we have Stockton Rush for the Sussy sub. I think we all remember the Sussy sub, although we might have forgotten about it because it was very briefly the current thing. The Sussy stub was the sub that they made out of like carbon fiber that they didn't properly test, that was like controlled by the video game controller. They didn't even get like a 360 controller or like an Xbox One controller. They got like this shitty like USB bargain bin dollar store controller. And they went down like on a trip to the Titanic, and then the sub imploded and everybody on board died. We have DeSantis's campaign launch, which he, despite being allegedly pro-life, he aborted his campaign. It was just a massive disaster. Nothing worked. The Twitter space kept going down. The audio quality was awful. DeSantis is not a good public speaker. He's not good at town hall stuff like that. DeSantis entered the presidential... DeSantis was seen as Trump's successor. He was seen as like the Trump with better optics, that he was going to be the shoo-in to be Trump's successor. He was going to win the 2028 nominee and probably become president. He also had a decent chance of being Trump's pick for vice president, but he decided to throw his hat in the ring when he had no business doing so, and his campaign launch was just a complete shit show. Next, we have Prince Harry's autobiography. If I recall, I think in it he talked about having an NTR fetish. I think he said like he fantasized about people having sex with his wife or something. Someone can correct me in the comments. There was a Chad story about William where I think he was disrespectful or something to their grandmother, and William just like punched him. There was like some story about how he lost his virginity outside of Burger King or something. The whole thing was just like a complete and utter humiliation. I don't remember all of it. I just remember it being really, really bad. And finally, we have Andrew Tate for going to jail. So, the award winner for biggest individual L of 2023 is Stockton Rush for the Saucy sub. Um, I'm pretty sure someone can correct me if this he didn't actually say that, but we had this inspirational quote. I don't want to hire any boring 50-year-old white guys to design the submersible. That's not inspirational and bring nothing new to the table. We have the sub that is like the most sussy looking thing I think I've ever seen. It's just literally like a can. We have the one video game controller. It was just shady as fuck. Like no one should have gotten on board this sub. It exploded. Everybody on board died. I mean, there's a lot of people on this list, but prior to Gonzalo's death, he was the only person who actually died. So that is the biggest L, individual L for the year. Next, we have the biggest collective W. Another another tricky one for the year. Um, we have Hamas for the October 8th attack and turning the entirety of the world against Israel, literally just shattering all of Israel's relationships with Arab countries, derailing the peace talks between Israel and Saudi Arabia. We have China for negotiating the rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Arguably, I call it a diplomatic revolution that is going to completely change and is completely changing the political dynamics of the Middle East and is one of the biggest, probably, diplomatic achievements of the last, since the end of the Cold War. And it's a big feather in China's cap. We have Russia for shutting down the spring, summer, fall offensive, just completely just saying no and just smacking it down. We have Canada for the based act of applauding an SS veteran in Parliament, of just cheering for him. That was fucking based. I think he's an Eastern Catholic too. So Canada gets nominated for that. And we have the Houthis for shutting down the entire Red Sea by just shooting a couple rockets at ships. It's a global disaster. It's a quagmire. The U.S. is now just firing bombs at them, and the Houthis just basically completely took it. I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to look at chat a bit and say, take a peek at this. You may have noticed something about the SS veteran that it keeps. It got nominated for basically everything, and the award for biggest collective W of 2023 is Hamas. Now, Hamas, like people had even forgotten Hamas even existed, and then they just came out of nowhere. They did this big attack on October 8th, Putin's birthday, and they did better than I think anybody expected them to do. I don't think anybody expected them to be that well trained, that disciplined, that sort of thing. But they did, and then Israel just went completely apeshit and just started blowing everything up. We had all the insane stuff like the fake 40 babies or whatever, with the El Shifa hospital, like where Netanyahu posted the like Counter Strike map of the like underground facility that there wasn't actually anything in. We have just the carpet bombing, like all the insane stuff, all the people spurging out on the internet. So Gaza got leveled, but I don't think Hamas is actually that devastated by this because most of the Hamas leadership is hiding in other places. And this has basically meant that it's impossible for Israel to have peace agreements with basically any Muslim country. Israel was actually having some success with like Egypt, with Morocco, with Saudi Arabia. They were starting to kind of regularize the relationships with the Muslim world. And if Israel had ever done that, then the Palestinians would cease to be a useful bargaining chip in the Arab-Israeli conflict. So what Hamas was able to do is completely turn back the clock like 50 years to destroy all the progress that had been made in Arab-Israeli relations. And we get these cases, and I have a clip of, I have a picture of it here. Um, there were multiple votes in the UN where it was something like, I think it was like 80 countries sponsored a resolution, and then 110 voted for it, and like 5 countries voted against it, and a couple abstained. And basically, like, it got to the point where like 90+% of the UN General Assembly was voting against America and Israel. And it was just a complete and total disaster for Israel. And they just are continuing to go on like full gamer mode. So yes, it was for a ceasefire. Sorry, I didn't explain that yet. It was for the ceasefire. So that's my logic. You might agree or disagree with me. I went back and forth a fair bit, but when I started to see those UN votes come in, and I saw like South Africa suing Israel in the International Court of Justice, and just like the sheer, like if you were on Twitter and you just saw like the schizophrenic stuff that like Ben Shapiro was posting, and just the full mask off, noses exposed. So that's it. But honestly, China was a close second for that one. Next, we have biggest individual W. Our first nominee is Justin Trudeau for bringing an SS veteran into Parliament and clapping for him. Second is Tucker Carlson for getting kicked off of Fox, starting a Twitter show, and having a bigger audience than his program at Fox. I think on Fox he got like what 2 or 3 million views a night. Now an episode of his show can get anywhere from 2 to like 20 million views. So his Twitter show is actually bigger. I think because they fired him without cause, he got to cash out his contract, made a whole bunch of money. Third, we have Javier Millei's election. He improbably won, and he is just crashing the Argentine ship of state with no survivors. He shut down like he got rid of half the department. He defunded like all the pause. He just deregulated shit. He cut government spending. Basically, he is just single-handedly dismantling Juan Perón's legacy, and it couldn't come soon enough. So, for being a weirdo and winning, and apparently succeeding in crashing the Argentine plane with no survivors, we are nominating Javier Milei. Next, we have Lord Miles for returning alive after 8 months in Taliban custody. Everybody thought he was dead. Some people thought the Taliban public relations commentary account was Lord Miles, but everyone was pretty much sure he was dead. Then he just showed up one day and it's like, yeah, I was chilling with the Taliban for the last 8 months. And now he's like importing stuff from Afghanistan, like signed by Taliban members to sell. And he's thinking he's going to maybe go back to Afghanistan and start a gold mine. Next, we have Putin's trip to the UAE and Saudi Arabia. The UAE, I showed a clip of it. Like he showed up and it was like a Roman triumph. The UAE got like jet planes to fly, and they like with contrails of the Russian flag. There was like hundreds of dudes with like swords and rifles lining the streets. It was epic. And then when he went to Saudi Arabia, like MBS basically gave him props, and they were like best bros. So that I think was really good, especially in light of how everyone was seeing Russia was isolated. And the last nominee for Best Individual W is Donald Trump for the fundraising he did off of his mugshot. People thought that that was going to be the downfall of Trump, that him getting indicted was going to be a big L. And he did like that angry smirk in it. And then he posted resist on his Twitter account. And he made, I think it was like $9 million in one day. And it became a meme. And it was a massive W for Trump. So this is a tricky one. Just sorry, I know I said I was. I'm just glancing at the looking at the chat. So the winner in this one I went back and forth on. So I'm going to be honest. I was thinking of giving it to Tucker initially. Um, Tucker was going to win, but yeah, I mean, I had to give it to Lord Miles. I mean, come on, the dude literally like went to Afghanistan. Um, the dude went to Afghanistan. He got kidnapped. He got apparently arrested by the Taliban, and then it turned out he's like, yeah, I was chilling with them for like the last 8 months. Um, Best mates with many top commanders after numerous picnics. I will be returning to Kabul next month. He's selling autographed shoes. He's going to open a gold mine in Afghanistan. Like, if that's not a Sigma move, I don't know what is. The fact is, well, a lot of these W's are very impressive. He literally returned when everyone was certain he was dead. And so I think we have to give him the biggest individual W. Um, that was a tricky one. That was one of the ones I decided at the very end. So next we have Chad of the Year. Firstly, we have Michael Cassidy, the dude who smashed the Baphomet statue. Second, we have Israeli Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu for obvious reasons. Third, we have El Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele. Bekele, I can't pronounce his name, um, who is just awesome. What he cut the crime rate by like 90%. He's probably going to win election with like 90+% of the vote. Probably the highest like percentage of the vote in like a contested, relatively free election. He recently just shit on Joe Biden like really big for the whole trying to get Trump off the ballot thing. Um, I don't know. He's just a Chad. I mean, he literally built a super prison and arrested like everywhere with a tattoo, and it worked, and he has a 90% approval rating. We have former US President Donald Trump for the mugshot, but more so the alpha thing is just not giving a shit about the primary, saying he's the nominee, not showing up to the debates, and not acknowledging any of the people actually just running against him. He just basically just told them to fuck off. He's acting as if he's the leader of the party and that he's running it and that he's already the candidate. Next and last but not least, we have MMA fighter Conor McGregor for coming out on uh, the whole Ireland immigrant stabbing thing. And I mean, he's an MMA fighter, so he's just a chat. And this was a tricky one. This was a toughie, but I have to give it to our main man, Michael Cassidy, for smashing the Baphomet statue. My conscience is held captive to the word of God, not the bureaucratic decree. His legal fund got maxed out within 3 hours, and people kept donating money, and he now has well over $80,000 for his legal defense. In a rare DeSantis W, DeSantis came out and endorsed him and supported his efforts. So I don't know if this is necessarily like the best pick, but it's just based. So there we go. Next, we have Gamer of the Year. Not Chat of the Year, but Gamer of the Year. Someone who represents everything that a gamer can and should be. And our nominees are Israeli Prime Minister Bebe Netanyahu, Ukrainian SS veteran Yaroslav Hunka, former police officer Derek Chauvin, Wagner head Prigozhin, Argentine Prime President Milley, and of course Hunter Biden. This is another tough one. Like, maybe I'll just talk about this a bit. Like, we have a guy who literally fought in the SS. Like, that's a gamer move. We have Derek Chauvin, who is literally just set off like nationwide riots. We have Prigozhin, who was a caterer who was pretending to be a mercenary leader and led an uprising. We have Javier Milei, who's this fucking weirdo who's like who's like a siscon and is just a weird fucking dude. And we have Hunter Biden, who is a grade A degenerate. Now, within this crowded field, this was going to be a tricky one. But something happened at the end of 2023, like in the final days of 2023, that changed this. Now, Prigozhin was probably going to win this originally. That was pretty high on the list. But I'm going to have to give it to our main man, Bibi Netanyahu, for leveling Gaza and plotting to deport the Palestinians to Africa. And that's what put him over the edge. I mean, going on a genocidal campaign and just carpet bombing everything is pretty gamer. Posting the fake Counter-Strike map of the El Shifa hospital and then it turning out that it actually wasn't there. Like, that was a pretty big gamer move. But talking to getting his dudes to go to various African countries and asking them to take in the Palestinians after they expel them in the aftermath of the war. I mean, that takes courage. To literally, like, I mean, what kind of man would say we're going to expel the Semitic people from our country because they're a parasite and they are an obstacle to ethnic homogeneity within our society. So we're going to expel the Semitic people to Africa so we don't have to deal with them anymore. I mean, I think there's another, like, one of the all-time gamers who would do something like that, but it was close. The expelling them to the Congo thing is what put him. We're coming down to our last 4 or 5 awards. We get the We Live in a Society Award. This is something that we can say, anything you say, like, we live in a society and then X. These are all things that really make you realize the kind of world that we're living in, that we're in clown world, how far the social revolution has progressed over the last couple decades. Our first nominee is the mainstream media for their panic over The Sound of Freedom. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, The Sound of Freedom was a movie that was put out by a conservative Christian movie studio about child trafficking and pedophiles and stuff like that. And it was very popular because it was like a Christian movie that was actually, like, watchable. And it made a fuck ton of money. And the media just went ape shit about it. And they immediately just went, no, this is fake. This is a lie. There's no pedophiles. There's no international child smuggling ring. This is a complete exaggeration. None of this is real. And they just went completely unhinged about it. Next, we have Ireland for the government response to stabbing and riots. What do you do when people stab little kids? You punish the people who get angry about it. You impose some of the strictest hate speech laws in the world, and that is your response to it. We live in a society where the person who gets pissed off that children get stabbed is the one who goes to jail. Next, we have America for giving more funding to Ukraine than Hawaii. Hawaii basically just burned down. Thousands of people were homeless. Uh, it was one of the biggest natural disasters in American history. And they got what, like $1,100 each or something like that. Meanwhile, Ukraine got something like $100+ billion. They could have literally given like every person in Hawaii like 100 grand or more. But we live in a society where that's just the way it is. We have Ukraine for the counteroffensive trailer because we live in a society where everything has to be a movie, everything has to be a cinematic universe. That's the way it has to go. And we have France for rioting over pensions. We aren't going to riot over mass immigration. We're not going to riot over stuff in our schools, gang activity, crime. Uh, Macron is just maybe changing the retirement age by like 2 years, and that's the only thing the French people care about. So, those are the We Live in the Society awards. I'm just going to see here what people are saying. Yeah, I think most people guessed it. The We Live in a Society award goes to Ireland for their gay Indian prime minister, saying that we will pass new laws in the coming weeks to enable the Gardaí to make better use of the CCT evidence that we collected. We are going to basically just arrest everybody who got pissed off uh, about the riot, like got pissed off about kids getting stabbed. They implemented some of the most draconian, insane, like you can be arrested for not giving police your mobile phone without cause laws in the world. And that is just one of the most blatant examples of how much a government hates its own people that I can really think of. So that's not really a funny one, but Ireland, we live in a society. Next, we have probably my favorite award of the evening. We just have a couple awards left. The Third World Award. This is the award for the country that is most, or person who is most embodied what it means to be a third world country. That is, as my friend Aztrak put it, incompetencia and corruption. Just sheer retardation, incompetence, corruption, um, just kind of general wackiness. Firstly, we have America for trying to kick Trump off the ballot and arrest him. That is our first nomination. Because it's basically like what they do in Banana Republic. Um, like people complain all the time about how Iran doesn't kicks people off the ballot, how Russia does it, but basically they just don't want Trump to win re-election, so they're inventing a bunch of shit and they're going to remove him from the ballot. Like I don't even know if that's been a thing. Maybe someone can post in the chat. I don't know if removing someone from a ballot, maybe during like the Civil War, like they removed Lincoln from the ballot leading up to the Civil War. I'm not sure, but I've never even heard of something like that before happening in the U.S. A second nomination to America for the East Palestine train derailment and aftermath. I mean, that was third world on so many levels. The fact that like America's rail, this seems to like happen on a regular basis. How bad America's rail system is, how bad its infrastructure is. The fact that when the train crashed, nobody gave a shit, and it like you just saw these like poor Ohioans who are just like crying and desperate, and they have to deal with all the toxic waste, and just no one gave a shit. And I mean, also, you know what? That would be another W for Trump because he showed up with a like a big like a truck full of water and food, and he bought the aid workers McDonald's, and that was really good optics. So that actually was probably a W for Trump. Canada for the assassination of separatist Sikh terrorists. Canada has a lot of separatist terrorists, but that was pretty third world. Venezuela for the Guyana border dispute, and Niger for the military coup. Military coups are pretty third world. It happened in Africa. Um, you have the country's name to consider. And also like the aftermath of it, where like you had the Nigerians waving the Wagner flags, and then America tried to get like the coalition of willing AWAC, I think it was, the Association of West African States. They're trying to get this coalition together to invade Niger, but then Niger and like Burkina Faso and I think Mauritania like formed this axis of the Sahel, and it just was a complete shit show, and it wound up just kind of going nowhere. So those are our nominees for the Third World Award. Sorry, I know I said I wasn't going to look in the chat, but I'm just looking at this. Yeah, that's true. Biden didn't even bother to show up. He would rather go to Ukraine. See here. And the award, this one was actually pretty easy, to be honest. I mean, we have some pretty good ones here, but I got to give it to the great socialist tyrant Maduro himself, Venezuela, for the Guyana border dispute. Venezuela, you have one of the shittiest countries on earth. I'd argue probably in the top 10 shittiest countries on earth. There's widespread deprivation, corruption, incompetence. You have people living in like high rises who are like cooking with wood. You have like this. I did a whole series called Venezuela Economy Poor, like where the government was giving soldiers who killed protesters rolls of toilet paper instead of medals. Like the whole thing is a shit show, and there's no reason for it to be that way because Venezuela is such a wealthy country. Oh yeah, they attempted to make the Amero. What was it? Amero Sanchez. They tried to make their own cryptocurrency backed by oil, and I don't even really know where that went on. I think I called it like Amero Sanchez, the little currency that could, a little crypto that could. So all this shit is happening, and like the thing that they decide to focus on is this fucking border dispute that no one had ever even heard of with Guyana, another country no one's ever heard of. And they're like, okay, so the great socialist tyrant, we're gonna start this. Guyana's gonna have to cede us like 2/3 of it. This is the reason everything's bad. This is the reason the country's gone to shit. This is why Hugo Chavez died, because he stayed awake every night thinking about the Guyana border dispute. It's just like the most third world great socialist tyrant thing I can really think of. I don't know. I didn't think this one was even really that close, to be honest. Petro. Yes, it was Petro. The cryptocurrency was Petro. I called it Petro Sanchez, the little currency that could. Next up, and we're down to our last two awards for the year, and they are important one. We have the F-slur of the year. Um, this is it's a word that we cannot say on YouTube because YouTube is run by F-slurs. But we have the award for the person who has acted most like an F-slur um, this year. We have Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley, always a contender for this one. We have once again Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, because he's Justo. We have ADL Director Jonathan Greenblatt for just the entire thing that happened on Twitter. We have German Chancellor Olaf Scholz for a myriad of different reasons. And we have Prince Harry for his autobiography, among many other things. So it's a tricky one. Now, Reagan Republican was gonna be on this list, but I decided to just leave out internet stuff. Um, this one took a little bit of time, but I think it's actually not that close. The F-slur of the year goes to German Chancellor Olaf Scholz for so many different reasons. Um, his approval rating is now below 20%. He has crashed the Social Democratic Party with no survivors. they might actually lose representation in a number of states when the next state elections happen. Th- Upon finding out that Ukraine blew up Nord Stream, he was just like, okay, that's cool. We're going to give them more money. He didn't give a shit about that. He shut down the nuclear power plants during an energy crisis, which caused energy prices in Germany to like double. There's been a series of like German businesses shutting down, like the economy is in crisis. Recently, he came out and he said this whole thing is because Putin cut off energy exports to Germany, and that's the reason why it's in the thing. His coalition is collapsing. Just, it's just a tool. Like no one likes Schultz. Schultz is like an 18% approval rating. I didn't even know that thing was like possible. But he took like the wealthiest, most productive, powerful country in Europe and somehow managed to just run it into the ground in record time. I mean, he makes Merkel look good. How do you make Mama Merkel look good? It's just everything about him, and now he's probably just going to have to resign and get removed. Um, like so. Finally, our final award for the evening. Final award for the evening. Lol Cow of the Year. Now this one is rough. This one's going to be tricky. So we have some good nominees. Now I made an executive decision that people who were nominated for F-slur of the Year could not also be nominated for Lol Cow of the Year because there'd be too much overlap. Our nominees for Lol Cow of the Year are Vladimir Zelensky, Chris Christie, Andrew Tate, Gonzalo Lira, and Kanye West. And we got a lot of people on this list. We have all of the sorry, just sneeze there. I didn't put Biden on this list because I thought that like putting a dude with like schizophrenia and dementia on was just like was too low even for me to make fun of. Um, like you have all that stuff with Zelensky. I'm reading chat more than I should, but I'm glad to see that people are saying like, oh, I even forgot that this happened because that's good because I didn't want to do just everything that was really obvious and everything that was from like the last 3 months of the year. All the pictures of Zelensky just looking pathetic, being shorter than everybody else, standing off to the side. We had Chris Christie, who the town halls that he did were some of the most amazing things I've ever seen. They felt like a 2.5 hour long desperate cry for help and a suicide note. We have Andrew Tate tweeting from jail. We have Kanye West and just everything. So why did I include Kanye? Because I don't know, just because I wanted to include Kanye. Once again, note I did not include any internet people in this. I was trying to avoid doing any kind of internet drama and just keep this to like relatively mainstreamy people. And the final Argent Award winner of the year, the lol cow of the year, the man who has exemplified everything it can that can and should be the subject of mockery is Andrew Tate. Now, let's just think about this for a second. This dude went to Romania like because he wanted to run his shady business in like a corrupt third world country, and then when he went to like a corrupt third world country, he was shocked that it was a corrupt third world country, and then he went to jail, and then somehow he was like posting 4 or 5 times a day from jail. It was like the most insane shit. Like At Laundry Today, three mortals attempted to intimidate me, unaware of my divine powers. I extended my hand and clicked my fingers, then asked them a simple question: do you know the secrets of Yoga Fire? They are not sure what changed their minds, but it did. We also have the one where he talked about how he fought a ghost in his cell. We had him say, I paced my cell enough times that it's the equivalent of walking to Siberia and back. Um, you had him constantly like complain about like having no access to the outside world, like tweeting about that. The whole thing like was just insane. Um, like it just and it just went on. It went on for like 3 or 4 months of him just tweeting like 5 times a day, like just insane stuff. So, uh, that's yeah. And there's also the photos of him with the anime girl. And so that is the 2023 RG Awards. We've handed them out to everybody. This last one, I admit, is probably controversial. I just had so much fun. I admit this is a bias on my part. Um, the whole, I just that was like the bright part of my day for like 2 months was getting up and reading Andrew Tate's account and all the insane shit that was posted there. Um, it just I don't know. There's also when he talked about how the British government spent $10 billion trying to shut him down. I mean, obviously they probably were run by his employees, but that's like it's funnier to say they are. So, okay, so now that we have gone through the award show, I'm gonna take some time and people in the comments. Who do you think was a good pick? Who do you think was a bad pick? Who should I have nominated? Is there any categories you think I should add for 2024? I'm debating doing these biannually because I already have like the list filling up. It's not we're not even through January yet. So once again, Justo got nominated for a lot of awards. He only won one though. You do notice that the SS veteran got like 10 nominees. Uh, I might do biannually. We'll see. We'll see. You should have a poll for every category. Uh, so yeah, just to talk a bit about. So what I was trying to do was I was trying to, like I said, pick out stuff from the entirety of the year, like not just stuff from the end of the year, and also try to come up with a couple like I don't know if zinger is the right way, but like throwing in something like I don't think anybody remembered Trump's NFT sale. I don't think anyone like would have thought Dark Brandon. Like what are some other just kind of like obscure ones I threw in? Like MaraLago being worth 18 million. That's kind of a random one. Let's see here. Uh I just didn't want to do internet stuff because I didn't want to get involved with that because then that leads to like G-slur ops and stuff like that. Let me see here. What else were some of the nominees? The categories that were the actually the hardest were probably worst take was really hard. I actually was going to do something else, but a friend of mine like sort of bullied me into it. Um, uh, I don't know if anyone even remembers Vivek. The CBC 69% thing I think was like in last spring or last winter. Uh, I think Biggest Snake is actually my favorite award list. Rank them from first to last. They're honestly just in the order of longest to shortest written. Biggest collective L. I kind of wanted to give it to Armenia, but I kind of felt like I had to give it to Ukraine. Um, Biggest individual L was also really hard. Um, too much Ukraine in the Canadian Parliament. So the Canadian Parliament was just obviously supposed to be a joke based on the fact that, like, I put it under both W and L. Um, and that was just kind of the joke that it got listed under both in every category. So it probably wouldn't have actually been listed under every category. I just thought it was funny. Um, this one, it was actually going to be, who was it going to be for biggest L? This was a tricky one. I think DeSantis was actually going to win this one. Um, because the dude like was Trump's successor. Um, and it was a failure. But I mean, DeSantis didn't die. Biggest collective W was another one that I think you could make a case for just about any of these. Um, like maybe some people think it's weird because Hamas did trigger a cataclysmic invasion and destruction of their homeland, but uh, they achieved like all of their political objectives. Um, so individual W is also a tricky one because I mean Tucker Carlson like won big. Like everyone thought that they shut him down, but his Twitter show's going great. He's hanging out with Elon. Um, it didn't hurt him at all. Chat of the year. That was another one I decided at the last minute. I think he was good. I think El Salvador president was going to win. Initially, gamer of the year was going to go to Prigozhin, I think, or Hunter Biden, until the Congo deportation thing happened. We live in a society was another one that like down to basic. Some of these I picked out when I was doing the when I was actually making this list. Like that one I hadn't decided of till I was literally reading through it. Um, yeah. So I thought that was fun. Um, one of the problems that I'm going to run into is the 2024 election is this year, and I feel like stuff to do with the 2024 election is just going to like cover this whole thing up because so much insane shit could go down there. Like you could fill up probably like there's going to be cringe, there's going to be horrible takes, there's going to be a lot of like gamer moments, a lot of we live in a society and stuff like that. So we'll see how it goes, but I think those are the Arg. Or wait, one second. Who was I going to give best take to if I didn't give it to myself? Probably Elon Musk was probably going to win it. So I'm glad you guys had fun. God bless everybody. More exciting content to come soon. Um, and have a great evening, everybody, and have a great weekend. I'll talk.